It's time for another WrestlePlanet news update, as Chris Jericho wants a match with Samoa Joe in AEW. We have an update regarding NXT and AEW potentially signing Tessa Blanchard, and Daniel Bryan's WWE contract has expired. All that and more coming up in today's video, but first, let's take a look at the final card for tonight's Blood and Guts special of AEW Dynamite. It looks like it's going to be a stacked show with solid matches from top to bottom, so let's see what All Elite Wrestling have planned. Britt Baker will be in action against an unconfirmed opponent. Cody Rhodes will be taking on former friend QT Marshall. We'll see a tag team #1 contender 4-way between SCU, Jurassic Express, the Varsity Blondes and the Acclaimed. AEW Impact and AAA Mega Champion Kenny Omega will team with Michael Nakazawa to take on Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston. And of course we've got the main event, which will be the first ever Blood and Guts match, which will see the Inner Circle taking on the Pinnacle. And it's been almost a year since the announcement of the first Blood and Guts match, which was ultimately cancelled, as we discussed in our 10 cancelled AEW plans we never got to see. But finally we're going to get to see it, albeit with a different lineup. And of course, let me know your predictions in the comments below, and if you're interested in seeing a breakdown of all of the rules for the match, make sure you check out our previous video where we ran through it in full. And speaking of Blood and Guts, one of the participants in the match, MJF, spoke to Yahoo Sports and had some harsh words for his colleagues on the roster. As we know, Friedman is a throwback heel and is heavily influenced by old school wrestling, and it seems that he's not a fan of the general AEW in-ring product. He told Yahoo, "When I first got into the industry, I was already a student of the game. I enjoyed watching the Nick Bockwinkel's, the Ric Flairs, the Tully Blanchards, who I now get to work with every week, do their thing. The smartest thing about them, contrary to what you see now stylistically in professional wrestling, was that they didn't want to get hit, they didn't want to mess their bodies up. When I watch professional wrestling on AEW Dynamite, I cringe. I want to puke in my mouth a little bit because I see these guys and they are murdering themselves. They are jumping from the top rope to the floor, they are doing loopy loops, the twisty turns, the flippity doo-dahs, and they are killing themselves. Some of these people who are younger than me, and I'm already wildly young, might not be able to walk anymore when they get to my age." And that's quite the statement considering MJF is only 25 years old, but whilst MJF likes to stay in character even outside of AEW, I have no doubts that these are actually his true feelings given who he has been influenced by in the past. And let me know what you think in the comments below. Do the AEW roster go too far with the loopy loops, as MJF would put it? Let me know in the comments down below. Recently, speaking on his Talk Is Jericho podcast, Chris Jericho was asked about AEW potentially signing some of the recently released WWE talent, with Le Champion bringing up 2 names that he was interested in, one of which was quite surprising. Jericho said, "You look at a guy like Tucker, for example. I don't know if we would take him tomorrow, we might, but it seems to me if he goes and proves what he can do and what he's capable of, well then absolutely." As well as Tucker, Jericho spoke about the biggest name of all of the releases, Samoa Joe, somebody he believes is a proven main eventer, and somebody he'd love to see join All Elite Wrestling. He said, "Obviously, the one name that stands out as an established main event heavyweight champion guy is Samoa Joe. Those guys have 3 months before they can go anywhere, but I'd love to see Joe in an AEW ring at some point. That's another dream match if you want to go there. I've never wrestled him. I think we had one little match on Raw and it was just kind of throwaway. And I didn't want to do it because I said this is a pay-per-view match, but that's the WWE style. I think Joe and Jericho, Joe and Omega, Joe with Cody, Joe with put name here is a money match." Of all the recent releases, Samoa Joe would be at the top of pretty much every AEW fan's shopping list of not only the released names, but of the free agent market in general. Besides the unrealistic signings of the likes of Brock Lesnar and CM Punk, Samoa Joe is the most valuable name available right now and would be a huge asset wherever he ends up. Last week, SE Scoops reported that Tessa Blanchard and her husband Dagger were on the way to All Elite Wrestling with a deal, quote, all but a formality, with talks of there being a redemption storyline in place in order to win fans over following Tessa's recent controversies. We now have a contradicting report from Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer that AEW are in fact not in talks with Tessa and currently have no plans of bringing her in. Meltzer said the following on Wrestling Observer Radio: I do have to make mention before we go that AEW is not negotiating with Tessa Blanchard. I know people keep asking me about this, and in fact there's nothing to it, so that's the deal. Now, it should be said that Dave does have direct contacts within the company, but it could be a case of his sources trying to throw him off the scent, or maybe he's been asked to throw out this information in order to throw the fans off the scent. This is not the first time we've had contradicting reports of Tessa being in talks with the promotion, but only time will tell if there is something in the works. And let me know which report you believe in the comments down below. And quickly before we go, we also have an update regarding the Diamond Mine vignettes that have been appearing on NXT TV in regards to Blanchard. And before we continue, why not go and grab the free Young Bucks audiobook using our Audible affiliate link in the description below. And while you're down there, why not subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss any upcoming videos. But let's get back to the news. Rumors have spread that the diamond reference in the videos are in relation to Tessa, as she wears a diamond on her chest, but according to Fightful, WWE did not expect fans to connect the dots to Tessa, and that WWE fans should not expect Blanchard to head to NXT anytime soon. It seems for now that Blanchard is somebody that the top American promotions are keeping their distance from, likely to avoid the inevitable social media backlash they would receive were they to sign her. And finally, it is being reported that Daniel Bryan is now in fact a free agent following his recent match on Smackdown against Roman Reigns, where he was, quote, banished from the brand after his loss to the tribal chief. This appears to have been a storyline way of writing him off of TV whilst getting heat on their top heel. Daniel Bryan, of course, was recently in the main event of WrestleMania 37 in a losing effort as part of the triple threat against Edge and Roman, with this potentially being WWE's way of wooing him back into signing a new deal, but it appears that it hasn't worked. As we talked about in a recent list, Bryan's contract was set to expire after WrestleMania, and it seems that is in fact the case. In the past, Bryan has expressed an interest in working for other promotions whilst also working for WWE, although this is seen as an unlikely possibility. Right now, it looks like it will have to be one or the other, so could Bryan now return to his former moniker of Bryan Danielson and explore the waters of the wrestling world outside of WWE? It's important to note that if a WWE contract expires, a talent can appear in any promotion as soon as they like, as seen with Jon Moxley's debut in AEW after his WWE contract expired not long before. He didn't have to wait out the 90 days, so that will also be the case with Bryan. There's a chance he could just be taking a break from the company, with WWE reportedly pushing hard for him to sign a new deal, but this is certainly going to be an interesting story to monitor. Before his time in WWE, Bryan was known for his freelance spirit, and I would say it's likely that he will have a desire to have one last indie run before he hangs up his boots. With the world beginning to open up once again, it's possible that we could see Danielson travel to Mexico, Japan, even the UK, and maybe, just maybe, All Elite Wrestling. And before you go, why not check out my video on 10 AEW and All In wrestlers who later joined WWE.